Also got a speech this morning at 11 o'clock from the leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, of course our colleague here at TalkTV, and he joins us right now to give us perhaps a little bit of a glimpse of what he might have to say about his vision for the future. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia. Well, I think it's a little bit more realistic than the Prime Minister's vision. I mean, I was interested in the front page of the Daily Star, where is Rishi? Well, when he finally appears, it seems he's just focusing on maths, when actually the crisis facing this country is the most serious, I think, that any of us can remember. So what we'll be doing, Julia, is setting out the state of the nation today. Firstly, where it should be. As the fifth largest economy in the world, we should be lowly taxed, we should have great public services, we should have efficient government spending, we should have cheap energy, we should have zero waiting lists, all these obvious things that we would expect in a well-run, prosperous nation. But the reality is, Julia, that the country is a million miles from that. The country is broken. What actually works?
Why are we where? I mean, you can't really solve the problem and find solutions unless you know why you're in that mess in the first place. Who, what, why do you blame it on?
Well, the first obvious thing is who's been in charge for the last 12 years. Well, that's the Tory party. And if you just look at the long list of things that are wrong with the country, taxes are the highest for 70 years, government spending's the highest for 50 years, and yet nothing works. Inflation's the highest for 30 years, and yet productivity's the lowest for 30 years. Strikes the highest for 40 years, energy prices the highest ever, NHS waiting list the highest. On all of this, all of these things actually, Julia, can be solved with proper leadership, with proper direction, proper management, and yet we're just seeing the government is just wasting money everywhere. So what we're doing is we're saying, look, this is a great, great country. We can be great. We should be great. But you've got to have proper leadership, the right decisions. How do we make this country great? Well, we know that fundamentally we've got to make Britain work. And at the moment, Julia, the country isn't working. Everybody can see that. We come back to the new year. You'd like to be full of hope and optimism and enthusiasm, and actually you can't get to work. And one of the things is actually for too many people at all levels of the pay spectrum, Julia, work isn't paying, particularly for the lowest paid, the least well off. And that's why we've got so many crises, because, you know, with tax levels where they are, even if you're lowly paid, I know there's a crisis when people come to me, Julia, and say, I've got people on low pay resigning to go on benefits.
Okay.
We've got 1 in 8 of the working age population, Julia, on out-of-work benefits.
We haven't got much time, Richard Tice. I've got a funny feeling that when you give this announcement, you'll put some out on social media, and there'll be many people who'll say, well, it's all your fault, Richard. You're one of the big campaigners, a leader of one backers of Leave EU. You wanted Brexit. Brexit is part of the problem, and that's your fault.
And it's absolute nonsense, because the list of things that I've just read out, none of those have anything whatsoever to do with Brexit. It's all a complete failure of leadership and management and where we invest. Okay.
So what would you do? Look, realistically, you're not going to be the next Prime Minister, with all due respect, Richard. I mean, bouncing up in the polls, no doubt. One of the polls I saw recently, you're above the Lib Dems. Not that that's saying much, but you're definitely heading in the right direction. And as we know, as with UKIP previously, and with your party, actually, you don't need to be winning any seats at all to damage the Tories' chances of winning seats, and therefore perhaps getting the Tories to focus more on what an awful lot of their voters might be wanting.
One of our jobs is to put forward bold, radical proposals for reform so that this country works. And that's what we believe is the right thing.
So what? Okay, give me your number one.
Shape and influence government decisions.
You've got your announcement at 11 o'clock. Is there anything you can tell us in terms of your actual announcement? Are you saying, look, these are all the problems? We all know what the problems are. Give us at least one solution.
We're going to set out a single clear solution that will help make work pay. And so I say, look at 11 o'clock. If you can't, look at the socials and you see what that solution is, Julia.
Is the solution make Richard Tice Prime Minister?
That's actually not it, Julia.
I think a lot of people would be quite happy with that. I have to say, a lot of my audience certainly would be, Richard. We will wait and see what happens at 11 o'clock. Thank you very much indeed, Richard Tice, the leader of Reform UK.